Okay.
That
Welcome, everybody. We are live here on this awesome Sunday. And today we have Stephanie Light. So, welcome, Stephanie. I know we've been chatting for a while, over a year at least, to try to make this happen. Um, and I was thinking I was going to be in Texas for another convention, and then that got canceled. And then I started this membership thing a year ago, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can make it fit for that. So I'm super appreciative to have you here and to
Thank
finally get
you.
to connect.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Oh, what's your kitty's name?
This is El Gato. He is he's his nickname is Merlin. He
I
came to he
love
came to
it.
me one night as Merlin. So I kind of he's gonna try to get settled here. All
Oh
right,
my
rubbing the
goodness.
microphone. He's a big furry monster.
Saying hi.
Come on. All right, get settled in. Let's go. Come on. It's all right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
fine.
All right. So Stephanie, yes. So
Yeah.
we get to know you a little bit before we get into the channeling. I'm curious about your journey and how it got started for you. And I know it goes way back, but tell us how you first connected in with channeling and especially with the Sassani. Was it CC? Was that the first being you
Yeah.
connected with? So yeah, tell us that story.
Yeah. So before I get into that, I just want to share that I channel many, many different beings. So CC is one of the main beings that I do channel, but I channel like so many different ones. But I started out in the very beginning of time when I was younger. I was always sensitive to energies. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows. Everybody, I mean, not about me, but about themselves. They understand the journey in terms of being in tune to different types of energies. Started at a very, as far as I can remember. But what essentially occurred was I went through multiple spiritual awakenings. And the first one I had started doing, at the time, we called it angelic writing, but it's automatic writing.
Oh, okay. That was called
And
angelic writing at some time?
yeah, that's what it was called when I started it,
Mhm.
how I just kind of went with the flow. And interestingly enough, I never took a class on it, just heard people talk about it in communities online. And so through connecting with the various different types of beings doing automatic writing, it opened up a door for me. And I was going through a lot of different things at that time. So I was going through many, many, many different weird situations with energies and entities of different light, dark, that sort of thing. Um, but I had recognized a pattern in myself where I would speak to someone and we would be having a conversation and I wouldn't know the answers to their questions necessarily. Like they were just, this happened at a young age. So my family mainly. And then as I got older, friends, people would have something going on. Like I remember my aunt was going through a really nasty divorce and I was able to just tell her answers, and I had never been through a divorce at that time period, never even, you know, and I was just flowing with information. It's like I could feel literally energy coming from the top of my head,
Mhm.
and I would just go, I would just flow. And it seemed like I knew the answers to a lot of questions, and I didn't even doubt myself when I did respond to people's, situations. I know that a lot of people, when they kind of begin talking about, right, their channeling journey, a lot of people kind of go into, oh, I was abducted at this age. And I have had many experiences. And as I'm older and I'm able to remember parts of those experiences, I've had a lot of different interaction with ETs, but also most of my interactions have been with the higher realms, like the higher dimensional beings. So most of my guides are higher dimensional. So a lot of what I do bring through besides CC is that those higher dimensional energies. I didn't know where they were coming from before, but eventually over time I realized what they were. But fast forwarding through this experience, I realized I was conscious channeling. And then I started to listen to Abraham Hicks,
Mm.
uh, and Bashar, and I started really tuning into their messages. And I was like, well, my partner at the time, he was like, well, you know what? Let's go to a channeling class. Went to a channeling practice group, not a class, but a
Okay.
practice. And so I just sat in the chair, the hot seat, and I kept trying. And for some reason, I wasn't able to fully connect. I could connect, but it was just, it felt very heavy and dense, like I was going against the grain. So then I went home and I said, okay, let's try something because I just felt this feeling to try it a different way. So what I did was I just relaxed into the flow. I didn't question what was coming up for me. Like I didn't wait for some bells to ring or something like that. I just
Right.
relaxed in the meditative state and I just said, hello. And then as soon as it's like I opened a door and the bridge between the ego and that higher self that's receiving the energy or messages, and it just started to flow. And I've taught many people the same way because that's just, I would say, the easiest way actually to learn because you're essentially putting your ego on the passenger seat, right? And you're allowing your higher self to step in. And the higher self is in tune with the vibrations from the beings that you're channeling. So it really does create this experience. And so ever since that day, I haven't stopped since. So
Awesome. So if you said who were you channeling prior to, say, getting exposure to Abraham Hicks and Bashar? Was it a particular entity or a group?
I wasn't aware necessarily of the name because they don't ever have a name
Mhm.
before that point. It was more so, I feel it was a collective, and the collective was probably most likely my guides coming from the higher dimensions, but they never have, and it's like they show me a soul, right? Essentially. And they're like, we don't have an identity like that. I mean,
Right.
yes, a lot of these beings, they create that identity for us to be able to relate to them. But it's not the same where it's not like the same where we would say, hey, that person's name is so and so, that person's from this part of the
Sure.
planet or whatever. So that's the way that I have pretty much been felt about those beings that I did channel before I started fully channeling Cece. But like I said, I've channeled many different beings because essentially you just have to be familiar with the energy of that being. So if you think about when you think about, say, I don't know, Abraham Hicks, right?
Mhm.
You think about it, you have a feeling. Your feeling is a connection. That connection is literally the doorway. So when you go into that channeling state, when you get into that meditative state, you are allowing yourself to bring that familiar feeling back to you. And that feeling is not going to be the same for everybody, right? It's going to
Mhm.
be different for each person. But that it's almost like it's like your calling card or like your doorway. So I've done that with many, many different types of beings from, Pleiadians to elemental beings like fairies.
Mhm.
I had one session, one person had me channel their cat that passed away. I've animals. I, I don't know. The list goes on.
For sure. How do you
Cody.
I'm wondering how do you make a connection to an energy that you, may not have felt before? So if you for example, somebody's requesting to connect to their, past cat, how do you recognize that? What is the is there a technique or a mechanism?
So I will, in some cases, I will ask for a picture, say, and it allows me to make that energetic connection. So when it comes to whether or not someone doesn't have a picture, could still do it just by knowing the cat's name or knowing the animal's name, because that's going to bring up a feeling for me, an
Okay.
intuitive feeling. And it's almost like once I connect to that intuitive feeling of that name and I'm able to bring it up in order to channel it, it's like the puzzle fits together
Right.
So it's almost like so a lot of times when we practice, say a lot of students that I've taught, right? They'll start practicing and they'll be so much in the mind. They will try and figure out all of the steps, like why this, why that. But once they actually let go and trust that they are making that connection, then that's when that energy begins to flow. And that's when the information comes because the higher self is already connected. The higher self is already connected
Mm.
to that collective of souls. And it's interesting because I've actually done that with people that have passed too, connected directly to them, their soul because they have multiple, versions of themselves, right? And so you
Mhm.
have the soul and you can actually channel and actually connect directly to that person that has passed soul. And that kind of gets a little bit questionable when it comes to like mediumship and things like that, but it's not mediumship, it's channeling. So it's a
I
little bit
see.
different.
And so I've heard some channelers or some people say
Yeah.
that you can only channel, different versions of yourself. Um, but then some people channel so many different beings. It's like, wait, yeah, are they all different versions of this person or this collective?
It's true.
What's your experience on sort of channeling? Like, for example, is Cece, just like Bashar is another version of Daryl in simultaneous realities? Is Cece a simultaneous version of you in the Sassani reality?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
she is. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why most of what I do channel is CC. I mean, every so often I will come out with a video that's not CC, or I will get a request to channel certain beings. I mean, I have even it's interesting because I'm thinking about it now and I'm laughing in my mind. I've even channeled cryptocurrency before, like the
Like,
energy of cryptocurrency.
oh, wow. Okay, I'm very curious now. You sparked
That
my
was a what I was a little bit back, like a few years ago, but
mhm.
essentially, you think about it,
In
right?
particular crypto, Bitcoin, or any
No,
just in general?
just the consciousness of the entire cryptocurrency. So,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
anything specific, but
Mhm.
that's it's really interesting because if you think about it, it essentially has a consciousness.
Sure.
We gave it that. We brought it alive. And so, yeah, it was interesting. I'd have to dig it up and find the video.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah. I'm just curious. I was like, well, what did
yeah,
they say? What does the cryptocurrency beans say about stuff? Do you remember what are any highlights that you remember from that one? That's interesting.
I I remember I do remember the one of the biggest points, and I'm sure most of you may have, have this recollection, is that the actual, like, currency of the dollar or, the foreign currencies,
Mhm.
physical components eventually is going to go away, right?
Right.
It's going to go away. And everybody
Sure.
already knows this though, right?
Mhm.
So it's going to go away and there's going to be a lot of changes before that takes place. So is obviously going to be a decline, right? It's
Right.
already happening, right? And there's going to be a point where if everybody understands the world is changing, right? And in order for something to actually change, what happens? It dies first, right? Not actual death, but change. So something ends to allow for new space, for new beginnings. So
Mhm.
money is just one of them. So that was a big point. There was a lot of talk about waiting not to buy anything for a while. And as far as the timeline, like I said, this was like a few years ago, so I don't remember every
Well,
little thing,
oh,
but,
no worries. No, I'm just we'll dig it up later and
yeah,
post it. But yeah, that's fascinating. Um, because yeah, it's interesting you say that because I've always talked about, for example, this battery, right? That this battery is actually artificial intelligence.
yeah,
What keeps its form and its shape? There's an intelligence, a consciousness behind, a battery or a phone or anything that man creates is channeled in a sense, merging with that consciousness to get the idea to create it. So it's artificial intelligence in the sense that there's another consciousness beyond the human intelligence that's keeping this form in function in our collective reality. So of
Yes.
course, yeah, cryptocurrency has its own consciousness, its own frequency, and just like everything, yeah, you could probably channel the battery next to him and get some sort of electric energy download. Who knows?
Yeah, and I think what also is very interesting is that when it comes to, if you think about it, and this is another spin on these ideas, your imagination is literally a portal. Right? It's a portal.
Mhm.
That is what CC has always showed me, that's always what I felt. So, when we think about the imagination as a portal and we are, essentially creating something, are we really creating it? Or are we
Right.
actually connecting to the energy of its creation,
Yes.
right? And we're bringing it through, whether it's from an alternate dimension, whether it's from an alternate reality, another Earth or another planet, whatever it is. I mean,
Yep.
it's made up. So when we channel, when I tell my students when we first begin channeling, they're like, "How do I know it's so and so?" Or "How do I know I'm actually doing it?"
Right.
Because you are. You're connecting. You're making that connection. You may start a little bit rough at first, You may have to just kind of like go within yourself and pull out your imagination tool, start to utilize that a little bit. That formulates the bridge. So then as you continue to channel, essentially what happens is you end up in the flow. And then, you don't realize this, but it's like 40 minutes later, you're like, oh, wow, I was channeling. I
Right.
was channeling for I thought I was, just 5 minutes and it's here 40 minutes. And the information that comes through is just absolutely astonishing. And these are like new people taking classes, and they're new to channeling. I mean, so I don't know, I don't know, I think one of my clients, or he's my friend, but I taught him how to channel. I think he's actually on
Oh,
your,
Tony.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was looking for him. I don't see him on the chat today. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Tony has done guest channelings on her Friday night open mic stuff. So
Yep.
very good stuff, very clear channel. And I was gonna ask about well, Bashar famously says, fake it till you make it, right? That's a
Yeah.
famous quote. So yeah, absolutely. You don't have to get it right on the first try. It's just play around and have fun with it. And even
Yeah.
though I say that, even though I'm not really a channeler, I have been in that state, the channeling state, so I know what it feels like, so
Yeah.
I can describe it and I can understand it and have a vocabulary around it, but I don't consider myself a channeler by any means, in that, and compared to you guys and who are doing this. I channel the questions. I have my
Well,
curiosity.
well, channeling can come in many different ways.
Yeah.
I had another client, such beautiful energy. She's also my friend. She actually she also, started in the same class with Tony and
Oh, okay.
started channeling, but she actually started making the most beautiful music. Beautiful, beautiful sound baths, holding space for large audiences of people, and just like, that's a form of channeling. I told her, "That's a form of channeling. You're tapping in." So learning how to channel isn't just about learning how to vocal or trance state channel. There's so many. I can channel, with my eyes open and not be in trance state, or, other people can channel, they create, even people that create movies. I mean,
Yep.
definitely they're channeling something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, art is, what's his name? Jason Silva and other um, Robert. I'm trying to think of some of the names, but they talk about flow states, which essentially
Yes.
I think is channeling.
Yeah.
And artist, that's art is a sense whatever your art is, whether it's movement or painting or making movies or writing, script writing or story writing. I think all of it, in a sense, when it can come through effortlessly and you get into that flow state, then you're channeling. Sports, many people in the sports, they reach that flow state where it becomes effortless, where whatever you're doing
Yeah.
is just sort of you're in that runner's high in a sense, where you're just kind of getting to that zone and you reach that trance state, so to say, where information can just come through. So really powerful stuff that mainstream science is starting to recognize, and it's fun to not be the crazy person anymore. And
Yeah. That
I'd be
was
like,
one
what?
thing that I did deal with growing up was like,
Okay.
"Things wrong with you. You're insane." Like,
Stealing Fire, that was it. Thanks, Charmaine. Sorry, that was the book by,
yeah.
Robert Charmaine, do you remember the names? Okay. Anyways, Stealing Fire, I'll put a link later. But yeah, so sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
Stephanie,
you're fine.
you're saying
Um,
as a child.
yeah. Yeah, something like, through these awakenings of seeing spirits, hearing spirits, like, I mean I could just go on about that stuff because I've had so many different so I grew up in Rhode Island. So, we do have the Bridgewater Triangle in that area. So, Massachusetts is right there, about maybe, what, 20 minutes? I think I live about 20 minutes from the Bridgewater Triangle.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if are you familiar with that area?
Not too far, is that near, like, Salem, in that area too?
No.
Okay.
So this is a triangle shape
Mhm.
piece of kind of like when you understand the Bermuda Triangle. There's a lot of interesting phenomenon that has occurred there. Lots of Bigfoot activity, lots of how do they say that? Pudgeweegees or some Pudgeweege? I can't say it.
What?
They're like these little elf creatures that the Native Americans over there had talked a
Okay.
lot about, but it's really more so like the shadow people, just really kind of different energy coming from this trial, and of course UFO sightings. And so I had a lot of interesting experiences with beings from other realms, like coming through portals and just really bizarre stuff. So, having those experiences and talking about them, of course, and then
Right.
having my own personal channeling experiences, angel writing, all that stuff, people are like, "What is wrong with that woman?" And then when I started, as I got older and things started to kind of click and start to make more sense as far as why I was drawn to this, why I was even doing this,
Mhm.
right? But yeah, yeah, people are more
Well,
accepting of it. So
more accepting now, right?
yeah.
But still, I'm sure, like many of us on the call here, we're probably still the odd one in the crowd, in the group.
Yeah.
I was just having so my friend, he's a director from Taiwan, and we go back. I've known him since Vincent since early 2000s, and he still is in one foot in some of the old crowds that I used to hang out with in the action world, and he's an assistant to Jet Li for a lot of things. I used to be in the action world and do a lot of film stuff and film fighting and that kind of thing. And he was coming to the States it's been a while, and he's meeting up with all these old friends and having lunch and talking, and my name comes up, and it seems like everybody just thinks in that industry, in my old industry, they just think I've completely lost my bonkers, and I've left the city. I'm in the woods doing some weird cult thing. And it's just hilarious to hear how some of the,
Yeah.
oh, is Tony in? All right.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
Yeah.
just
No,
looked
no,
down and
no.
I
It's
saw
just it just blows my mind how the perspective of some people, because it's some of this stuff is so foreign for people,
yeah,
so
that's
they
true.
even though it's still becoming more and more popular and more accepted, there still is uh,
Stigma.
I stigma, yes, that's it, so,
Yeah,
but
that is true.
we roll with the punches, and actually, I've just been out of that world, so I whatever. It's way more fun doing this than action fighting stuff. It gets old. Yeah, so my hat. Yeah, this is my sun hat. I was out doing stuff. Picked it up at the dolphin on the Gina's laughing at the dolphin. We just did a Mexico cruise when
Oh,
we went down
fun.
to Mexico and got to swim with some dolphins, which was a unique experience because they were all in captivity, and I've done dolphin swimming in Hawaii without the captivity, and it was a very different experience. Um, I yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings. Uh,
Oh, with yeah, I don't
yeah.
when it comes to animals, I'm like super I don't know. I think that they like, animals are so important, right? They're sentient beings.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, I just can't even yeah, I mean, I
Well,
hear things all the
yeah, they were on the dolphin trip, they were having you could tell they were having a good time hanging out
yeah.
with the people and giving them, we got to they would give people rides, hang onto their fins, and they would actually give you rides and stuff, which you probably could never do in the States. But there was and I think they were probably born in captivity,
Oh,
so they didn't really know another life. What I was getting was that they were the volunteering in a sense, they were getting joy out of having the human interaction. So there was that. Being in captivity, I'm sure if they had an option, they would not want to be in that
yeah.
situation. But it felt like it wasn't so doom and gloom or bad, bad. I don't
So
know.
good.
Uh,
Mhm.
Wade, you were there, right? On that, did you come with on the dolphin? Yeah, you were there. I remember
Yes,
seeing
I
you.
was there. Yeah,
What were your thoughts?
anyway, I thought that, the trainers really were looking out for them, if they were getting fatigued or missed a command or something,
Right.
they gave them rest time and kind of did something else for a while, let them recover. The Dolphins seem to generally enjoy their trainers and the guests there.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good.
Yeah, so it wasn't super doom and gloom, but there was that feeling of like, "Oh, I wish these guys were out free, doing their thing." Now,
Yeah.
have you ever channeled the dolphin?
Have I channeled the dolphin?
I know that's a
I think
odd question.
yes, I think I have actually.
Okay,
I think that I'm trying to I've channeled a lot of different, beings. I'm pretty sure I have channeled the dolphin. Yeah,
okay.
I don't know if it's on my YouTube. I'll have to look and see.
Alright. Well,
'Cause I have
if
a
it
lot of
is
videos on YouTube, but I have a lot on my Patreon too. So,
okay.
it just kind of it's it's been a while, so I think but I do think I have. Yeah.
Mermaids?
Mermaid. No, I don't think I did a mermaid.
Okay.
No, I
Alright.
mean, I've done, Atlantean beings, I don't think I did a mermaid, though. Maybe I did. I don't
It's alright. I'm just sorry. I'm
I'm
just putting you
telling
on the
you.
spot. It just the dolphins came up, and then we were literally before the conversation that I was having while I was late to the call a little bit
Yeah,
was, with my friend Vincent about mermaids and his partner. So just
yeah,
curious. Maybe they'll come through later for us today. So I'm curious about your, journey with the Sasani because you've channeled both Elon,
yes.
as CC. Any other Sasani beings, have come through for you?
No, I've done the collective, but no, I haven't channeled any other Sani beings, no.
What's the difference between, say, Elon? Because for me, the Sasani energy, when I tap into it, it's very similar, even when you're
It is.
in the individual beings. So if you're comparing Bashar to Elon or Elon to say even CC or another, there's been other Sasani beings that have come through other people, but the energy feels very similar across the board.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate between, say, an Elon and CC?
So, Elon, his energy when he comes through, he is it's more of a punch when he comes in, meaning the energy is a lot more strong. And where CC, it's still strong, don't get me wrong, but it's not as strong, because and then Elon always has this energy and this certain flow, right? And the way they communicate is essentially through energy exchange,
Mhm.
right? So we're connecting to their language, which essentially is energy. And so when I'm like deciphering, when my higher self is receiving that energy, and then we are transferring that energy to speak, it's almost as if there is there's a certain rhythm to it, right?
Mhm.
There's a certain way. It's like almost like an energy language where I would say that if you would compare like CC to Elon, it's different because Elon again has that more of that forceful energy. And not and maybe forceful is not the right word, but you know
Right.
what I mean. It's much louder, it's much more direct, and he does speak faster.
Okay. Well, yeah, the Sasani in general seem to be more of that directness.
Yes.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. Then have you compared to say like the Palladian energy as well? Is that how does that differentiate? So I'm just trying to get this is sort
No,
of
you're
like the
fine.
because you have so
So
many different beings that come through. I'm just kind of like curious about how they come through for you.
so Pleiadians always come to me as a very soft, kind of soft, like
Mhm.
very angelic almost, right? And they're very loving. They're and not that the other beings are not, but there's
Right.
just something in particular about the way they carry themselves, and they just have this really strong love vibration that is very airy to me. It's
Mhm.
very airy and light. So when I speak, I'm speaking in that softer tone with the Pleiadians.
Gotcha.
And then
Gotcha.
the Draconians,
Oh,
uh,
that's right. Yes, you have
yes,
done. You
they're
have
very,
tapped into them as well. So
very, very like strong.
is it? Yeah, is it anger almost when it comes
No.
through, or is it no? Okay, what is that strongness? What is that? Eh,
So it's like, um, I mean, I don't want to say aggression because it's not,
mhm,
because if I say aggression, it could be easily taken as anger, right? But it's
sure.
not. It's just a very strong energy. I'll just say that it's very strong energy. And I've channeled different draconians, and the ones that I've channeled have always been ones that are higher dimensional, so they don't have any like negative feelings towards humans.
Mm,
There was one that I used to channel for a client a while back that was more neutral, very direct, very neutral. Just kind of wanted messages to come across to Earth in regards to a misunderstanding that a lot of humans do look at these beings as just automatically they're destructive and they're dark and they're trying to take over the planet and all
right.
these things I've heard.
Mhm.
But they not all of them are that way, and they get this like a misconception about them, and so that being wanted to convey that to that channeling.
Interesting. Wow. So I assume do you have a favorite? Is CC sort of your you said your go-to, is CC your favorite, or have
Yeah.
you channeled other beings that are like, "Oh, I'd rather channel this person for an hour," or does it matter on the depending on the group or depending on the individual that you're channeling for?
I think mostly, obviously, I prefer CC just because it does feel, this feels more natural for me going into it, probably just because I've channeled her so many times. But, I mean, honestly, I mean, I enjoy channeling any of the beings. And it's interesting because one of the clients that I had before asked me, and this is gonna sound really weird, but he actually asked me to channel Lucifer. And yes, and it wasn't coming from a place of uh, like that the stigma, that dark energy. It wasn't about that. It was merely like, I want to understand this being. I want to understand this being's soul. Right. And so I did channel that being. And it wasn't dark or anything like that. It was
Yeah, we had another
accessible.
channeler who also has channeled Pamela Arielin, who has channeled Lucifer as well. Not on this program,
Yeah.
but sort of the same thing. Yeah, I was wondering, in that state, what did you feel like? What was different about that compared to some of the other?
It was very neutral, and I don't know, I just felt very neutral, and any time that I do any type of channeling where I haven't really worked with the energy before or I'm unsure, I always ask, higher consciousness, source, to kinda step in and just be that anchor and surround me with love and, ensure that everything is coming from the highest dimensional place. Because I will only channel the higher dimensional energies by choice, right? There are some people that will, but I only go with the higher dimensional energy or aspects of a person. So to me, it felt very neutral. It didn't feel dark. It didn't feel light. It just felt neutral. And I think maybe that's that buffer, maybe because, maybe that's why, I don't know.
Yeah, I think as we go into these higher states of consciousness or higher realms, we start to take away our stigmatism or our projections of good or bad, and we're
Yes.
hanging out in this neutral area, and then you start interacting with these beings that typically have a negative context in our collective consciousness. They start
Yeah.
to become more neutral, right? Just like the super so-called good angels and good energies also tend to sway more into the neutral spectrum as
Right.
and have less of a the good and evil start to get very neutralized. I guess that's the term, right?
Well, and I think it's really, I'm a firm believer in your beliefs create your reality, right? And so when we believe that something is right and when we believe something is wrong, whether it's energy, whether it's interactions, right? We are creating that construct, right?
Oh,
So really in reality, in my opinion, and what I feel is that there really isn't good and bad necessarily. It's really about our experiences. Now, when you look at it from our perspective on Earth, of course there's good and bad, right? Somebody hurts someone, that's bad, right? But when you look at different parts and different pieces to the puzzle with when it comes to situations that occur, it's like the way I've healed myself, I guess you could say, from things that have happened to me is, and in that not everybody will necessarily agree, but that's okay. You don't necessarily have to agree. But it's like when I look at what may have happened in my life and something happened, and I think in my mind, in my heart, I'm like, okay, well, maybe this was an agreement. Maybe this was something I agreed to. Maybe this is not coming from this dark, negative spot, but maybe it's actually coming from a loving spot to help me move me in a direction because I chose this, right? And then, so by doing that, it's like I've reframed my relationship to that past event or that past trauma. And so now we're kind of putting a new spin on it, right? And so now we can move forward, recognizing it not necessarily for that picture that we once saw it, but something that's more enlightening. And so I do think that does happen. I do think that sometimes, not always, but I do think sometimes when we do go through certain things, I do think that there is a reason behind it. And if we, as we grow and as we evolve as a collective or as, who we are, we start to move into positions or directions that are a little bit more, you could say, enlightening. So when we do happen to want to learn something through personal life lessons, it's not going to be as crazy, right? But I think it's obviously dependent on a person's journey, right?
yeah, absolutely. And even today we were doing a meditation. I don't know if you guys caught the meditation. We did like a group meditation online through with some other folks. And that seemed to be the theme today. There's so much polarity going on with the different narratives in the collective consciousness, especially with, as you mentioned, the fall of the financial systems and different, new one system dying, new things happening. And with all of that comes a lot of name calling and sleight of
Right.
hand and strange narratives and different things. So the idea today was to go into that center point, that neutral point, and not get caught up in this polarity game that is constantly being fed down our throats through the mainstream media is constantly trying to get us to pick a side on with obviously with politics, but just in general with it doesn't matter. There's just so many new like in Twitter, the blue check mark thing. There's so many polarity things and people are getting caught up on that. And it's just like, come on, guys, this is can't you spend your time doing something better than to argue about blue check marks? Come on. It seems like wherever you look now, there's just something there to create to get people riled up. So, the more we can not see or see, I'm sorry, see things throughout without a polarity lens, not a good versus evil or this is bad, or then we can
Yeah.
not get caught up in that stuff. So anyway.
And I
In Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say really quickly was that I think that as we continue to change and we continue to be the best version of ourselves and with that intention, that's truly how, right, we change our world because this is our world. Whether it's my world or your world, right? We're in our own little universes and we're having our own experience. So when we choose to kind of step up more into empowerment, like taking into consideration what we feel and how we perceive things, and we do the work, right? We're doing the work. Then we start to become better versions of ourselves. We're stepping into that better version of ourselves or closer to your higher self. You're integrating those soul aspects. And as the collective does that, we will begin to start to see more changes, right? And as you align with the higher vibrations, anything that is not within that vibrational spectrum, right? What happens? It falls away.
Yep.
So this is the falling, right? We're noticing a lot of things happening. Things are not working in certain ways that it used to work. And as we continue to evolve, we're still noticing. And eventually, as Cece said, and I'm just feeling like I have to share this because she says too. But it's like we could either collide and go into a tower moment, right? Like the tower card from the tarot deck. That's what I always see in my mind. But like we can either do that, or we could just simply continue to flow on and continue to enjoy and continue to smell the roses that's present or the flowers that are present versus noticing all this destruction that may be happening over here. So that's it. That's what
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get into channeling, we're coming up on the hour. I was going to say, does anybody want to ask any questions to Stephanie before we lose her into the dimensions? But I am assuming we can also do follow-up questions at the end and talk about some new projects and stuff. But before we get into channeling, if there's any direct questions, I'm curious, Tony, what has been your experience learning to channel from Stephanie? Is he still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, guys.
Okay.
Hi, Tony.
Where
Here.
are you at? I'm trying to find you here.
I mean, she literally got me.
Oh, there it is. There he is.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, she literally got me like where I am today without her. Like, she's the only channeler I ever knew when my whole adventure started. And I actually contacted her because one of my cats died. And I was looking for an animal communicator, and I just Googled and she like showed up somehow, not knowing anything about channeling, and that's how our relationship began. And I mean, I've taken many of her classes, and I love Stephanie.
Tony, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Wade, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if she ever had students in her class that just could not get it, could not channel anything.
So I've had, I would say 98, 99% success rate, but there was one or two people that it's not that they couldn't get it. It was that they couldn't get out of their mind, right? They were too much in the analytical side, which I did work with them after the fact. Like we've had the one-on-ones afterwards, and then they eventually just kind of decided to go with the channeling. But it's more like they were in their mind so much because they were trying to decipher whether or not they were really channeling. And they did channel, but it was in, I guess you could say, broken up segments. So it would just be a little bit, and they would stop and they would go do it. But as far as not anybody never channeling, I guess that was your question, never ever making the connection, I would say no. But to continue to channel, I would say one or two.
That sounds familiar with an analytical mind.
Yeah, we're working with Wade, all of us. We're trying to get there. But yeah, no, Wade's right there. He's just right. you're gonna it's gonna break through, and you're gonna be our next guest. Wade, I can't
No.
wait.
You'll get it. You got to believe in it. You got to believe your ability to do so. And you've got to let down the walls of the mind and just allow yourself to relax and flow into it. It's like what I always say to new people that start is just like, close your eyes. We go through the meditation, whatever, you relax, you're in the state. And then, so when you actually start to feel the energy, don't try to connect to a certain being, just open it up. Allow whatever being that is vibrationally in sync with you in the moment to come to you. While you're doing that, you would just if you don't feel anything, just start with a hello. And then somebody's asking you questions. And as they're asking you questions, you're answering them. Maybe you're using your imagination for just a short time, but you'll start to notice as you are doing so, you're letting those walls go more and more. And then by the time, you're 30 minutes in after all of these questions, you're like, and you come out of it, you're like, what? That was 40 minutes. That was 30 minutes. I can't believe it. I did it. So it's really, really, really about just kind of trusting in the process, because as one of the things that I first began, one of the things that Bashar always said is like, it's not word for word because I don't remember exactly how he phrased this, but one of the things that kept me going was, it's like, if you, the information is relevant to that moment, to that person is receiving it on the other side. That information is not yours to judge, to determine whether or not the information that person is receiving is accurate. That's not your job. Your job is to be the channel, to allow the energy to come, right? And then when you provide that information, that person that is receiving it is perfect for that person in that moment, regardless of what your mind may think about it, right? Because even if it's like he was talking about, I don't remember even which question this was from a person in the audience, but he was talking about like if the person has a question and the question is to make a person look bad or look inaccurate, right? Perhaps maybe there's a lesson in that experience. There's a lesson for the person actually asking the question, and that person is going to just get what they need from that experience, whether it's to show that other person is accurate, or whether or not that person is learning a lesson from that experience. So I don't know if that made sense, that last part, but referring to someone in the audience asking a question about an experience they had. And I believe she was a tarot reader, I think it was. And she was giving a reading to someone and she was talking about her experience with that person. But that always kind of reminded me, right? It's not ours to judge. And when we do that, we just like a weight just lifts right off your shoulders.
And Ruben's right. I am getting glimpses and I'm a little closer, relaxing a little bit, and seeing images when I meditate. And I'm starting to remember my dreams. So yeah, we're making progress.
Nice.
Do you have practice where someone asks you questions? Because if you don't, that's something you should definitely get involved in, because that's really, really going to seal the deal. That's going to help you tremendously.
No, that doesn't exist right now.
Friday night open mic. Here it comes. Wade's next.
I'm going to go visit Tony on the side first.
There you go. All right. Sandra, you have a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I find this so highly exciting. Thank you so much, Ruben. Stephanie, I have a question. 50% of my questions actually answered already. But I wanted to ask, because I'm sure you still have online courses available, or are they in person where somebody wants to register for channeling with you to learn to get into that phase? My second question would be, are there any tips to get rid of the ego? Because I do like, as you said, you must learn how to pack your ego at some point and connect with the higher self. I have the experience truly that I can sometimes be gone for 2 hours without realizing that 2 hours have gone, but nothing happens. So maybe I'm too fixed that I cannot let go of something, but I'm obviously very excited about the journey and I'd like to also deepen a little bit. So get deeper into it and connect eventually.
Yeah. So, as far as like the first question, I haven't done one in in a little while, but typically, yes, I do still do them. I usually will get like a gather up. I usually like to do at least 4 to 5 people in the class, but I don't do really big classes because I do one-on-ones inside of the class. So when we do the class, everybody has a chance to practice. And so we all, take turns asking that person a question. And so we do different levels. We'll do beginners, we'll do intermediate, and it really helps to set the stage too, where you have your support there in the class, right? Because your class, everybody's going to be interacting with you and cheering you on. And the second question, I will say that when you actually are getting into the state, I mentioned this a little while ago, but I didn't reference the ego when I was mentioning this. This is the best way. It's not to get rid of your ego because that's your identity. That's who you are, right? That's who you are as a person. But it's more so, it's actually asking, it's like asking your ego to step aside for a moment to allow the higher self. So it's fulfilling the desire of the ego to know that what's happening is actually happening. So that's why I say tapping into your imagination, because that it's like a little game, right? So when you are fantasizing or when you're imagining, right, your ego is like, oh man, this is awesome, right? But then you're actually, as you're doing that, you're actually moving forward into actually channeling. And so the imagination is the key to the portal to open that doorway to allow you to be able to connect to those energies. So that is one of the biggest things in the class for people just kind of starting out.
Is there anything particular we can visualize to get to that entry?
Well, I mean, you could visualize that you are, there's so many different visual tools that you could use as metaphors to say to your ego, hey, one of the things is we do an activation by looking in a mirror. Like we walk down a path, a meditation visualization where we walk down a path and we look inside of a mirror. And in the mirror, we start to kind of come in sync with our higher self. And by doing so, you're opening your heart and you're giving yourself permission. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You're giving yourself permission to channel. It's so, yeah, that's one of the visual tools that has helped people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that said, Stephanie, how are you ready to go
Yeah, I'm
under for a
ready.
minute?
Just so you guys know, my nose is a little bit stuffy. So when I start channeling, if my nose starts, you know, just so you know,
Okay.
it's
No
just
worries.
FYI.
If things get messy, we'll let you know.
All right. Okay. We thank you for this opportunity, for this engagement this day of your time. My name is Cece. I am also present with Elon and the Sassani Collective during this channeling experience. Whenever you are ready, you may begin with your questions or dialogue.
Excellent. Nice to talk to you, CC.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to have this experience.
Big fan of the collective and all the great knowledge that's come through over the years for me. And hats off to Elon for just being a major influence in his teachings through Andrew Bayuk in those early teachings in the 90s really helped me through a lot of stuff. So deep place in my heart for the Sassani and Elon and all the teachings.
Yes. And you also have visited me in my spacecraft, and we had a disco dance.
Disco dance. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the Sassani know how to disco.
Well, I know how to disco.
Okay. All right. Well, doesn't it work if one of you learns something and knows something? Don't all of you know it at the same time? Or how does that work?
Yes, but some feel as though they are not quite excited by the idea to have, I have a disco ball in my ship. So many other Sassani beings may or may not find that exciting. So we do have our own personal excitements. Although we are part of a collective and we do have the accessibility to be able to tap in whenever we want, we also do have our own personal experiences within that.
Interesting. So was the disco my higher self's version idea, or was it Cece's idea? Or how did how did I end up being on a ship in a disco situation with you guys?
Well, as far as the actual disco ball in the spacecraft, that is the channel's idea. But you and your higher self did make an appearance because we were, you could say, chatting it up a bit and allowing a connection to be established. So when we do interact on this day, we do have much to discuss. But of course, as you continue along your journey and you begin to understand who you really are and your connections, then you will start to understand why you are so drawn to the Sassani.
Yes. Well, I'd love to unpack that a little bit. So I'm assuming as I have these feelings and connections to different civilizations and different groups that I'm interacting in this form and fashion, that I've been told, but I also just assume it or have a knowing that I do have counterparts in your civilization as well.
Yes, you do have several different counterparts, but
Okay.
more precisely, there is a particular Sassani being, and of course, you understand the name that this Sassani being is choosing is going to be based on their connection with you.
Hmm.
So, the name that is being chosen is Roy Ball, Roybal.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so, this particular being precisely is those that are actually doing this type of work. So, a first contact specialist. Although this particular being does not quite work with Earth necessarily, there is going to be a time and a place where you will start to feel the energy a little bit more with this being. Perhaps maybe in your dreams, because this being has been trying to make a connection with you in a more conscious state, in your conscious awareness. So, with that being said, this particular being, Roy Ball, will make a appearance in your dreams.
Okay.
And in your willingness to receive that connection, to receive that communication, you will have more insight into your connection.
Awesome. Is there anything I can do in my waking life that can help me make that connection?
Well, as you go into meditation, you can always bring forward the Sasani collective, or more particularly, this particular being, Roy Ball, to your heart, to your mind's eye, and just feeling into that sensation. And as you feel into that sensation, you begin to recognize and you begin to feel similar sensations. And by you opening yourself up to feeling that energy, you are literally making a connection right then and there. But to make a more, you could say, concrete connection in your day-to-day waking life, meaning
Mm.
without being in your meditative state, you can simply just allow yourself to continue to feel that energy. And as you go through your day, look for the synchronicities, look for signs and symbols, look for acts of communication, things that give you the aha moment, like a light bulb, because these are going to be the signs of your counterpart speaking with you. Because
Okay.
as you visualize and as you feel into that energy, you are literally calling that energy in. You are calling that being to communicate with you. It would work the same as well for any of your other counterparts and also other beings from other civilizations.
Right. And is there a specific um is there something in my day-to-day life that would be more resonant with the Sasani energy? I feel caffeine might it's is a little bit
Well,
resonant.
you can use that as a permission slip
Okay.
because you go boingy, boingy, boingy,
Right,
boingy.
right.
And so think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment. Boingy, boingy, boingy. If you think about that, and
Okay.
you think about a little bit about what you do in your daily life and
Mhm.
where you focus your energy on, you can kind of see the connections. So this particular being works, yes, with the idea of communication to beings in other realms, in other planets. But there's also an element here that involves the idea or notion of connection, not just to these beings, but to collectives, and bringing these individuals together or these souls together, these beings together in a harmonious way. And so by recognizing that energy and that flow that brings in these beings, then you will begin to actually feel that now and start to see the pattern in your waking life and see how these are related to one another. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, and I know probably most people on this call won't really know what the boingy boingy is, but the boingy boingy has a very deep meaning for me, and I'll explain it later. But yes, thank you. I think that those are some good tips for me to make those connections. Thank you very much. Um, we'll open the call for other questions, but I'm gonna keep going here, and then if you guys want to raise your hand. Um, I'm curious to know about, um, uh, the connection with the Sassani and the humans, and we have such a deep, obviously with Bashar and Daryl and his work has made such a deep impact on the collective consciousness, but the Sassani especially kind of are, a hybrid race. They've got the story, and they're coming through in this form and fashion. Is I'm wondering why, and what's the relevance with this visitation from we know with the Pleiades as we're, cousins. We know about the hybrid race stories from the Sassani, but is there a particular reason why the Sassani are with us and sharing this information in this way?
Well, many of you that actually are on this planet share a commonality. And that commonality is other versions of you actually having a counterpart with society. But not only that, the desire to communicate, the desire to bring forward this information. And so, yes, there are other civilizations that could step in place and they could have these interactions, but it just so happens that energetically speaking, there is that connection. But also, there are agreements also on your planet back in your history, and where humans have actually made agreements to other civilizations, including ours, to create and formulate this connection to assist in this, you could say, ascension process. We do not like to use that word very often because that word has been used so many times in so many different ways on your planet. But please understand, when we are referring to this, we are referring to the moving up in dimensions, the awareness that's happening, the growth that's happening in your world. And for each and every single one of you to start to formulate a better relationship with yourselves, but also with your collective. And as you begin to actually move into a place of alignment to this higher evolved version of you, then we will be able to formulate a more pronounced connection or a more pronounced communication, a interaction.
I see. And how about we've heard in the past, just earlier we were actually talking about dolphins and mermaids, and how is the Sasani energy connected to those, or is there even a connection with those other life forms on our planet?
So we are having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, but we
Sure.
think that you asked about the connections to the dolphins and any of the other sentient beings. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. What's if there is a connection, and what is that connection with other sentient beings on planet Earth? Dolphins, mermaids, even if they're still around, and those types of elemental energies. And what's the Sasani's role in interacting with those energies, if there is a role?
Well, you could understand this in some form of way, but as we connect and we connect to many different realms, many different dimensions, we understand that everything is connected. And so, since everything is connected, there is a connection to the dolphins, to the mermaids, to all the civilizations, including humans, of course. So, there is a connection. And by us actually connecting directly to Source and bringing forward that energy, bringing forward that movement, that flow, we are actually moving into these altered states of consciousness ourselves. And we are then experiencing that oneness, that connection. So, as far as a specific connection to, say, the dolphins, there are some of us in different variances within our collective, depending on precisely the timeline that we are connected in with the collective, that may have a stronger connection to these specific beings. But for me and the collective at this time that I am connecting to, we do not necessarily have a specific connection other than just being within the oneness, the flow of the energy that exists as we are all one. These beings, these what you call sentient beings, are carrying that life force. They are in sync vibrationally with that oneness all the time. So when we are plugged into that energy, when we are experiencing that energy, we are literally feeling that life force that exists within all beings. And we can feel it more so with these sentient beings because they do not actually deviate from their center.
I see. So, um, for example, dolphins might be more grounded than humans, especially at this point in time, or is it so easier to connect with them?
Well, grounded is a very interesting word to utilize when it comes to these animals. But if you are meaning that they are in their center, they're not in their minds, they do not have this ego sense as say a human does that can bring them into places of suffering or places where they are experiencing their own suffering, then yes, you could say that if that is what you mean by grounding in a sense, that center point, then
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. That's kind of what I was meaning. Is there a connection between the, for example, psychedelic world with mushrooms or other entheogens that um, help us humans make these connections? Does the Sasani utilize these realms, these tools to make contact?
So the first question, whether or not these, say, psychedelics do assist in the process of humans making different connections, yes, they can be used in this sort of way. They are a permission slip in a sense. There are ways, specifically speaking, that you can utilize the different, what we call medicines, or the channel and I. The channel had me agree to say the word medicines. So the medicines, in a sense, or what you call the psychedelic realm, these do have their own consciousness. And as you utilize this as a permission slip, you do have the ability to open these different doorways. Because what essentially happens is that actual ego that you may have, that identity, will forcefully, in some cases, get pushed aside. Or in other cases, the ego may simply integrate within that experience, which this allows there to be that receptivity, right? So, for example, the channel has done what you would call the 5-MeO DMT experience, in which this is the told medicine. In a sense, this brings you into these higher elevated state of consciousness. And so what occurs in this experience is that the individual is forcefully removing their ego in that moment because the medicine is so strong, the consciousness that brings them to their highest version of themselves. This is the point of the medicine experience. So when you utilize certain medicines, you are able to open that doorway to those other realms because you do not have the ego getting in the way by telling you that you are not having that experience. How could this be? And how could that not be? So this does work as a permission slip for some individuals, but keep in mind, it is a permission slip. So that means that by an individual becoming dependent on this as a utilization can actually lower their frequency. So what you do with this experience itself, there are many different variations of permission slips that can assist with making that connection. And has our civilization utilized such different types of psychedelics? Yes. And we did speak about this before with other channels, and also we have mentioned this before, but yes, we have utilized this type of psychedelic from time to time in our experiences. And so as you understand, as you hear about different pieces of information in regarding these psychedelics, it is really about your relationship and your belief system that will go hand in hand with those experiences.
Right, yeah. Like dolphins using blowfish poison to reach a psychedelic state in their culture. I guess everybody's got their ways to access different states.
Yes.
Some with disco balls as well. So Catherine,
That is a fun time.
yes. Catherine, go ahead with your question.
Hi, it's nice to speak with you. So I had a different channel who's a dear friend of ours, and I've had this big ever since I found out who Bashar was. Only during the pandemic, I actually was introduced to Bashar, and I mean, I just was like an instant resonance match for me and the teachings, and I've just gobbled it all up. So I feel obviously that like I'm lit up. There's a connection. But anyway, one of our friends was over and he was channeling, and I had asked him about it. Like, what's this deal? Like, why am I so drawn to Bashar and all this? And I guess I'm looking for confirmation or for you to speak into this. But he had said that I was somehow a part of it, I guess. And I didn't know if you would be able to tap in and just elaborate more of what my involvement may or may not be with any hybridization programs or the people of Sasani and whatnot.
Yes. So we do understand that you do have a counterpart within the Sassani. And this counterpart is what you would identify as female in some senses. The name is Mido, M-I-D-O-W, but it is pronounced Mido. And this particular being has what I would describe as a very wise energy. And what she likes to do specifically is she does work with the plants on our planet, but she also utilizes what we would call as teaching, guiding the younger Sassani beings. And by there just happens to be this very strong connection to Sassani, and maybe even a strong connection to the hybridization program because of your role that you play on Sassani as being that guide, being that teacher. And it's not necessarily only the young Sassani beings, but also those that need reassurance or guidance. And we understand with the verbiage reassurance that yes, Sassanis do not necessarily need reassurance, but there are time periods where there are questions along the journey, while there are needing to be consults, you could say. And so sometimes when this does occur, that you actually step in that place, step in that role and guide them.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And it's and also I wanted to ask, since you were talking about psychedelics and whatnot, um, because I've started like a cactus farm and grow like a ton of Trichoceres burgesi. I hope I'm saying that properly. But the psychoactive ingredient being mescaline instead of the psilocybin and the mushrooms. But again, I mean, I know they're all permission slips and whatnot. But is there a connection now that you've told me I work with plants? My counterpart plays with plants and Sassani. Is that the reason why? Is that the connection there?
There is that connection, yes, but also as your human experience in being in the position that you are in this particular reality that you are in, you have a way of sharing information. You have a healing touch, you could say. We do not like to use the word healing necessarily, but that is the word we will utilize for this expression. But yes, you do have a healing touch. And by you actually exhibiting some of these particular features of your counterpart is one of the, you could say, key components to your journey right now. So the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Satnam, I really appreciate it. Nice to speak.
Thanks, Catherine. Michelle.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
I've been curious about other 3D beings on other planets, if they exist, if they're out there, and anything about them. I mean, not necessarily compared to us, but just a curiosity if they're out there and about them.
Yes. So there are a few different civilizations, but do not forget, you are on Earth and you are having this experience, and there are alternate versions of Earth, and there are alternate versions of you on that Earth. But besides that example, we will go ahead and describe a civilization that is what you would call 3D. And this particular planet is not anywhere near, you could say, your planet. And there has not necessarily been a discovery of this planet. And in some reasons being that this particular planet, it exists within your dimension, yes, but it also has the capability to move into alternate dimensions. But the beings that reside on this planet are what you would consider to be third dimensional or 3D. And so these particular beings, they have what we would describe as colonies on this particular planet. And it is very much a red planet, but there is the same type of seasons where these particular physical beings do have the ability to live through these seasons. Although there are some places on the planet that it gets extreme temperatures, such as very hot, and they are unable to come outside, and vice versa. In the other parts of that planet, there is extreme cold temperatures, but they do have what we described as colonies. And these colonies, they are like little cities. In a sense, you could say that on your planet, you have all these buildings that you would make up a city. But these buildings are outside, and you move in and out of the buildings from outside to inside, where these colonies are actually what we would describe as all inside. So these beings do go outside, but they are very much similar to a human in some ways with the way that they look, but they have adapted more to that particular planet. And so their tone, their skin tone is very different. So some are very, very, very dark, whereas some are very, very, very pale. And so the food in which they would consume is very much grown in hydroponic systems within these colonies, because the extreme temperatures does not allow there to be vegetation. So, and these changes occurred on this planet and over the course of time. So you see, they did at one time have a lush planet, and now they do no longer have that. So they had to learn to adapt. And so these beings on this planet, they have had to learn to adapt. And this is where these colonies were built.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
And they do describe themselves as the diamond people. This is what one of their colonies is called.
Awesome. Thank you. Michelle, is that good?
Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All right. Stephen, go ahead.
Thanks. I've never had a chance to chat with a live channel, so it's an honor. Thank you.
Yes, we are excited for you to be here.
Oh, thanks. I guess from my understanding of channeling is it's a sense of resonance that we communicate upon. And my question would be how, like, let's say I'm sending a resonance downstream and then you send one back downstream, but the question is like resonance upstream and how you would feel resonance upstream, or how deeply you might feel. And maybe you could even play past, future, and present into the feel of resonance upstream of a thing or a person or anything that comes our way. Does that make sense?
We think so, but let me go ahead and reframe it so that way there I know exactly what you are asking. So are you talking about the experience of the exchange of energies during that communication, what it feels like on my side of the spectrum?
No, a little bit more in the sense of like how it resonates through, like what the spoken word, how it resonates through after being spoken, how it permeates through the universe.
Yes, we understand now. So when we are having this experience and the channel is speaking, so when it comes to the energy exchange, I am communicating through energy. The channel is receiving that energy through the higher self, which is then being transposed through her voice. That energy coming through the channel's voice, there is frequencies within the vibrational tone of her speaking that is being sent to many individuals that are listening. But there are, you could say, frequencies that are actually being digested internally, that is what you could say not in the conscious mind. So it is not in your conscious mind. So with these are activations, these are healing properties, these are the ability to experience what you need to experience in this moment. And so in some cases, this is like planting a seed in someone's mind. And the seed may not necessarily grow in that moment. It may not grow for another year, but it is whatever the individual that is receiving the seed is ready for that seed to grow, for that growth to occur within that individual. Now, as far as what I'm experiencing on my side as well within this is, of course, all of you tuning into these frequencies, hearing all these frequencies. I am also receiving information from all of your higher selves as well. And so when we have these experiences, ultimately, what is going out into the universe is the same vibration of love, connection, and bringing that energy in a place or space within your planet itself, individuals that are in resonance with this harmonizing energy will also receive something as well.
Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question to that. For example, today earlier we were doing some light language on the call, and I'm wondering, both with symbols with hands as well as verbal light languages, the resonances that we're told, that the multidimensional resonances, is that something similar to that what's coming out through these transmissions, through the channel transmissions? In addition to the voice, there's
Yes.
more resonance there.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So when individuals are having the experiences of watching or listening to, say, light language, they are also receiving the energy that is being transmitted from those movements or from that sound.
Awesome. Sandra, go ahead. You have a question.
Thank you. Yes, I have actually two, if I may ask. And
Sandra, there's a bit of an echo in your, you may want to I don't know if you can get closer to the microphone. We hear an
yeah.
echo.
Is it better?
Still an echo, but we can hear you a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. And the first question would be maybe the vision for Earth, if humanity will reach this consciousness, this oneness, how will life be on Earth? In the sense, because I understand as well, once we have reached a higher level of consciousness, that even other beings will be joining Earth, we will be mixing with other
Sorry, Sandra, it's a little hard to hear. Stephanie, are you able to hear her? I'm just checking because it's.
We are not able to hear very clearly, but
Yeah.
we can try and
Okay.
restate what we hear that she has said, and
Okay.
then we can determine whether or not we need to restate that question. But
Okay.
what we are hearing essentially is, what will the planet be like when there is oneness? Will there be these beings visiting from other planets or other dimensions? And how would Earth be? Is that correct?
Yes, very correct. Thank you.
So yes, we have done many different transmission on this particular topic because it is very much a journey right now for your planet. So as all of you, we have mentioned, start to become more in tune with who you are, you start to take those empowered steps in order to create your reality by doing what feels best. It is very simple when we talk about the formula. It is very simple when we say to follow your excitement to the best of your ability. And so when we say that, we are not only referring to just what's exciting in the moment, we are also referring to what feels better for you. So it is very simple. When you get up in the morning and bake breakfast, do you want a peanut butter toast or do you want eggs? Or do you want cereal? Or do you want fruit? It is a very simple process. Okay, I'm going to eat this. And when you go to put your socks on, which socks do you want to wear? And so as you continue to move in this intentional direction with using that inner tool, providing that guidance, that roadmap, and this will continue to bring you to a place of excitement, which will raise your frequency. And as you raise your frequency, you are moving through whatever may need to be moved through, whether these are physical changes, whether this is your perception in your environment. It may all be ultimately equal in that sense. But as the individuals on your planet start to do this, and as these situations change, where we talked about the currency and the medical system and the food system and all of these other parts that are moving within your current collective now, as you notice, these will begin to be stripped away because the planet is moving higher and higher in vibration. Whatever is not in sync will start to fall away. And so as you see this, this is a transformational process. And many of you that are in the higher vibrational state and that do follow your excitement will not necessarily experience the shape of your world in all that's falling away, because you will be in tune with your higher self, with your soul. You will literally shift to that new reality, where some of you may still kind of move through these experiences of falling away. But essentially, as your collective, as your planet continues to transform in that respect, the oneness will start to occur. Because why? Your ego is going to be in sync with your higher self. It's that your ego is going to die or go away. It is the ego becomes integrated with the higher self. The higher self becomes integrated with the ego. So literally, you become who you truly are. And as the human race does this, what essentially happens? There is no room for war. There is no room for destruction. There is not necessarily going to be that same polarity that you notice now on your planet, because there is a harmonious synchronization happening. And so as all of you begin to come to this position as a collective, you will start to notice more ships coming, and you will start to notice more interactions. Necessarily when you have gotten to that place of oneness, it will happen before that, but it will happen in subtle ways.
Awesome,
Perfect.
Sandra. Thank you.
Very much. Indeed.
Just to piggyback on that what you just said there. So it's my understanding that it's been said from Bashar actually that it's highly probable that we will have some major contact events in the next, maybe 5-ish years or so.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, and I'm assuming, just to get confirmation, that depends on the vibration of the planet, and if we are collectively in a fear-based state, that these probability of these light and love ships would probably not show up because they could instill more fear. Is that correct in saying that it's really up to the collective to sort of get over our ET issues before we can have contact on a global scale?
Well, what we do notice and what we have mentioned is that there are going to be smaller groups of individuals that will have these individualized contact experiences. But when we talk about on a mass scale, we do not see that all of a sudden there's going to be 500 ships in the sky and they're all landing on Earth like a contact event. But there will be contact events, just not like that. And in terms of the integration aspects, many of you are not aware that there are actually ETs among you now. They're more like hybrids, but they are amongst you. And so the understanding that when the human race wakes up to the recognition that these beings are actually within your civilization right now, there will be fear present. There will be that. But in the case that these beings are here and they are, you could say, moving forward and making their way in your world, and no one is aware that they are present, the energy in which they are bringing are allowing the collective to start to get adjusted to that frequency. So if a ET ship lands from the sky, comes down, and there are many, what do you think the humans would do then? If their vibration is as high and your vibration still as a collective is experiencing many fear-based belief systems, that will create a psychotic shock. So when many of the children that are being born in your world, you will notice they are becoming more and more sensitive. You will notice that the generations have changed. And so these children also have this hybrid energy. And so when individuals speak about how they have to adjust this to these new children being born in your world and how they are sensitive to this and sensitive to that, there is a understanding that is happening on a deep subconscious level. You are adjusting to these frequencies.
I see. Yeah, yeah. And having them um uh just having them born here carrying that frequency is allowing us to adjust in our own
Yes.
way. Like I guess water, some drops of water that clean the whole fishbowl, when these drops of these higher vibration kids come in and clean up the planet here. Um Sorry, going off on tangents. Jessica, go ahead.
Hi. Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. I had a contact experience where I was actually taken into a ship, a small craft, and I was explained how these crafts were flown by thought. And I was also shown what I later discovered was Arcturus. And I feel uh, a, a deep connection to the Arcturians. And what I've been trying to do as of late is to reconnect. And I was wondering, and I'm stuck trying to connect. So what I was wondering, is there something that I can do to help make another connection? How do I ask to go back to a ship to get more information?
Yes. So one of the key points, there was two things that came up when you were speaking. One being that there is something about Orion. So there is a connection with Orion as well. And so that energy did make its appearance when you were speaking. So we did see an Orion ship. But as you were describing how you want to make this connection again, we did see a whale, and the whale is a connection for you. It is almost like, in a sense, a calling card, because the sound of the whale will provide you the opportunity to go into a state where you are able to formulate that connection, where you are able to speak heart to heart. Now, remember, get out of your own way with the excitement, because when you get too excited, you start to doubt. You're building up momentum, but there's a part of you that has built up so much momentum that when it doesn't happen, it's a little sense of a disappointment, right? So we want you to move out of the momentum that you're currently building and allowing yourself to relax and to know that it will happen, because it is happening. You just are not remembering. So as you continue to move through these experiences, connecting within that whale frequency, the sounds of the whale, this will give you a chance to get into a vibrational state in your mind, in your heart, where now you can make that communication with them and perhaps receive that as you are receptive back from them. And through this experience, they can start to remind you. It's saying they are saying it is because you are not conscious when it is happening, when you are going on the ship. You just don't remember, but it is happening.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jessica. Laura, did we get your sound going? Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Hi, CC. It's really exciting to be able to talk to you. I have a question about if you can tell me my soul's origin in terms of, galactically speaking, and if you can tell me the main guides that are with me and their names. Is that
Yes, one moment while we are connecting to the energy. So we do feel that you have strong connections to Lemuria. That is one that we are experiencing. You do have connections to Orion. Sassani, and the Lyrans. Now, as far as the guides specifically that are surrounding you, there is one specific guide that is coming from the Orion civilization. In the way in which we are seeing this being is very much if you could imagine that there is a rock, like a boulder, and the boulder has come alive. That is the best way for us to describe the way in which this particular being appears. But the reason being that this being is showing himself in that way is that this is a very strong support guide. This is your rock, he's saying. He's about, I'm her rock. So there are times where you may be going through some things in your life when you just don't know where to go, or you just feel as though there's no support. But then you start to feel into almost as if you are being hugged in a sense, or you are being spoken to, or maybe your face is being caressed. And this energy, although he shows himself as a rock form, it is a very strong form, but it's also very soft because it provides you that connection. And so this particular being, again, comes from Orion. You do have a mantis guide. There is a mantis guide present around you. This particular mantis being is more so, you could say, in the higher dimensional realm. Therefore, there is no body. It is simply an energy form in the way that this particular being shows herself to us. And you had other realities, in a sense, in your understanding of past life. But of course, we see this as an alternate reality where you and this being shared an experience together. So it is almost as if you were inseparable in a sense. The energies that you both shared went hand in hand together, and as you would work together in that respect. So it is more so that you were in what we would describe the elemental realm. So there is this elemental connection that is present with this mantis being. And so this mantis being was not a mantis in that alternate reality, but more so a consciousness, almost like what we would describe as a sprite in a sense, or fairy, a very small being as it appears to the eyes, but it is a very large consciousness. And these consciousness that exist is within a large consciousness of these particular sprites or fairies. But both of you worked very closely together. You were very close. And so in this particular physical reality, she does play a role almost as if she was your mother in a sense. Very motherly type of energy. And also the connections with that hybridization program, which is what you also have that connections with. So there are many other guides that are present with you. There are some Sassani, we see that. We do see that there are relatives that have passed away that are also with you. And these relatives, some of these you really do not physically know. They were relatives from before you were born. And so the ancestors, you could call them ancestors in a sense. It is a grandmother, a great-great-great-grandmother that is very present with you at this time as well. There seems to be a lot of soft, very feminine energy around you at this time.
I was told recently that I have very few guides that are active. One was an Andromeda. Can somebody help me here?
Andromeda.
Yeah. And the other was a baby dragon that's kind of barely there. And I was given specific names. Are you picking up any of that? Or are the ones that you spoke of, do they have a name that I can associate with them?
Yes, we can provide you a name to the rock being. One moment, please. just laces. So it is spelled GESLASSUS. Just laces. And the mantis is Mowry, Mowry. And the Sassani, one of the Sassani beings, is Felipe. Those are some of the guides' names.
I appreciate it very much. I'll go back and rewatch it to write down all of the things that you mentioned in terms of origin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
So we're coming up on the end of the hour here, but can we squeeze in a question from Mark? CC, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, thanks very much. I was curious. It seems that just as our technology is starting to get to the point where we would become spacefaring, that is when the galactic community is also coming in and helping us to ascend so that we are just naturally non-warlike. But my understanding is other civilizations, though, did become spacefaring while they were still warlike, and that there's other civilizations that, have engaged in interstellar warfare and stuff. And I'm curious why it seems like we seem to be like skipping the interstellar warfare aspect of our evolution.
Yes. So many of you as a collective that have chosen to have this experience on Earth, you could say, decisions and choices to learn from the experiences on your Earth did not involve necessarily this interstellar warfare. And in the previous sense, if you look at your history, in a sense, now there isn't anything that is in the books about what has happened in the previous years on your planet, but there is and was some of what you would describe as an interstellar war in some senses. Not in the same way that you hear about all these other civilizations, but it was on a much more smaller scale. And because of the changes that took place and because of the intervention of, you could say, the Galactic Council, and because of the intervention of other civilizations getting involved, let's just say it was snipped in the butt right away. But your experiences now, your current Earth now, all of you that are currently living in this physical reality on this physical Earth are not in a position or place where you have chosen to be a part of that experience. So that's not to say that in the future that couldn't change, because everything in any moment can change at any given time. Do we foresee that there will be an interstellar war on your planet? No. But is there a possibility that there could try in the future sense? We can't say no because everything is always shifting and changing. But the way that we see it and the effort that humanity is beginning to truly make, we are noticing many beings starting to step more and more into their power, starting to make decisions and choices that are in alignment with the world or the planet that they want to be in living on. So the more you take these actions and these steps, regardless if it's just changing your mindset that day or making a huge donation to assist children or animals, it doesn't matter. You are making that effort. You are stepping forward and you are saying, no, I don't want to live in that kind of world. So the more the collective is doing these steps and making these decisions, the higher the vibration of the planet becomes. Therefore, does not allow what is not vibrationally in sync with that energy to be involved in that experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And for me, in my case, I mean, it's just, any warlike stuff just doesn't resonate at all. And I'm still shocked there's any of it going on still on the planet now. So yeah, it's not part of my vibration.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Mark. So I said last question, but Tony has his hand up and he gets special benefits since he so we're gonna let him squeeze this question in here. Go ahead, Tony.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, thank you for the special benefits. That was unexpected. I was really enjoying all the questions and I didn't have any, but now I just had this question about myself. Um, I've been feeling super tired the past 2.5 weeks. And it's not physical tiredness. It's very kind of energetical tiredness. That's the best way I can describe it. I want to sleep a lot when, I don't sleep a lot normally and I'm happy with not sleeping much. Uh, has there been anything, um, has there been anything going on, energetically with like Mother Gaia that perhaps I'm not the only one that's like feeling that? Or is there anything you could share? Just give us some information on that.
Tony, we know you very, very, very well. And firstly, we want to say thank you for being here. And we want to also remind you of something very key in your journey. And that is you must rest. You must reset. So part of what you are experiencing is that you need time away. You need a vacation, as the channel calls it, to give your mind time to rest. But also in hand, it gives the body time to rest. Because when you do not, and you are working a lot, and you are doing things, and you are doing things, and you are doing things, and you are tired, and you are ignoring the fatigue that you are experiencing, you keep going and going and going, you will eventually put yourself in a situation where you get sick and you're forced to rest. But also, you are experiencing many different, what we would describe as energetic shifting. So you are receiving a lot of new upgrades or downloads. And so this can make the body and the mind physically tired. You did mention your body was not tired, but you just feel the sense of tiredness. So this is also working within this as well. And so you do become more sensitive to things around you when you are already experiencing some form of fatigue. So therefore, you then become a magnet in a sense, and you have the ability to see and perceive things all around you, and you start to magnetize that fatigue, which then can increase your fatigue even more. So, number one, make sure you are drinking enough water because that is important. Number two, making sure you're resting. And when we say resting, we are not meaning just sleep. We are meaning the mind, Zen time, going to the spa and getting a massage, laying out in the sun and going into the hot tub, taking a break from things that may be taxing to the mind. Does that
Thank you.
make sense?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
We could all use this. We could all use a spa day for sure. I'm with you on that one. One last question, if I can squeeze it in. Sandra wanted to ask really quick if there's a way to recognize these hybrid beings that may already be walking amongst us.
Well, a lot of times, this is what we tell the chat. A lot of times when you think it is a being from another planet, or you think it's a being from another dimension, or when you look up at the clouds and you see something that looks like a ship, but you're not sure it's a ship, and those are beings. The only thing that we would say in reference to this is that when you are thinking something is something, Why would you think it in the first place if it wasn't? And
Exactly.
remember that signal in the heart, and that connection in the heart. There's a reason that you are having that experience. There's a reason why you are at some place, like the gas station, and you see someone that looks a little bit different and feels a little bit different to you. And you look at them and you get this sensation, but then your mind, what happens? Automatically clicks on, says, no, you're crazy. No, that's not true. That can't happen. But we are here to tell you it can, and it does.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, I guess we'll bring Stephanie back and just thank you, Cece, for sharing your wisdom. And hopefully we'll have some more disco adventures on the ship in the
Yes,
future.
we will. We thank you for this opportunity to allow us to express ourselves in this way. We send our unconditional love.
All right. How are you doing?
Good.
Do you go anywhere when you make those connections? Are you what are you experiencing?
Um, I'm just like, I'm not aware a lot of times when it's happening. Like I'm just in nothingness.
Okay.
It's almost like as if I'm asleep, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, because some people remember everything, some people remember a little bit, some people like Rob Gothier just go wholly out and has no idea what's going on. Are you more in that camp?
Yeah, I most of the time I don't remember anything. And
Hmm.
then if it's relevant, so like for example, I'll come back and maybe there's something I need to say to someone. I'll remember it. Just remember it. But usually I don't remember anything.
Do you
That's
remember?
why when I come back, I'm like, I mean, I
I
know
see.
something was happening, but I don't like my brain doesn't remember.
So what about the disco balls? I heard that was your idea to have the disco ball on the ship.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember ever like telling Cece about, but I do recall that one of my other clients, Mike, he actually was asking her about her ship, and she told him that she just put a disco ball in the ship,
All right.
and that she likes to dance with the lights on in the ship or something like that.
Okay. All
But
right. Well, apparently, my counterpart is part of that disco celebration, which we just got today. But she said that the disco ball was your idea. So
oh,
I think, did I get that wrong? I don't know. Maybe I thought that's what I heard. But fantastic channeling. Thank you so much for sharing and going into the altered state for us all. What do you have coming up that maybe some of our other guests can and members can check out?
Oh, well, I mean, I always have my Patreon. My Patreon is one of the biggest things that I have going on right now. I do post on YouTube as well, but most of what I channel is on the Patreon. There is different tiered members, and we also do workshops as well, classes as well. I don't have something planned right this moment up and coming for like a class, but I'm always open. So if I get 5 people that are interested in doing a class, we could definitely get a class going. That's what we have been working on is just kind of getting that Patreon all squared away with offering as many because I mean depending on the tiers, so like the upper tiers there's workshops that are included in the membership.
Okay.
There's one-on-ones included in the membership, all of that stuff, but that's the biggest project I have going on right now.
Okay.
So
Perfect. Well, we'll put links in the replay here so people can check it out. And thanks again. I'm glad we were finally able to connect and in this form and fashion. And again, thank you for sharing with us all today.
yay, thank you guys. I appreciate all of you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye.